Hi creators, since this video is going to be so long, let's get right into the craft room. All right, let's get started. Here are the supplies we are going to need. And we're gonna start off by taking these two canvases from the Dollar Tree, and we're gonna open those up, and we are going to remove the actual canvas from the frame. And this time I'm going to use this little staple remover that I had talked about in my last video. This thing is amazing. If you don't have one and you take apart these Dollar Tree frames very often, you should get one because it works so well. I did not have to be on the struggle bus during this video thanks to this staple remover. We are going to be using these Dollar Tree canvases, well, the frame of the canvas, as the actual frame or body of our knife holder. With the one that I made, I'm using 2 of the 8x10 canvases from the Dollar Tree. You could use any size that you want to, depending on what size knives you're going to put in the actual knife holder at the end. You could also build a frame out of just wood. I just thought this would be easier than building my own frame from scratch, and that way I can kind of use the canvases as my frame. Okay, now we've got our canvases loose from the frame itself. We're going to take our Dollar Tree foam board and we're going to trace inside the frame, and that way the foam board can sit snug inside the actual frame. Make sure if you guys make it to the end of this video and you liked the video to give me a thumbs up or leave me a comment and tell me that you liked it. I haven't actually seen this tutorial on YouTube anywhere, so not sure if anyone has ever made this before or not, but I thought this item was so cute, and when I get done with it, it is adorable. Even my husband was shocked. He was like, this turned out so cute. So I can't wait for you guys to make it. I'm just trimming my foam board so that it will fit really nice and tight inside that frame. And then once I get it in there, I'm going to run a little bead of hot glue around the front and back side so that it stays locked in there really well, because this is what we're going to actually glue our Jenga blocks and our paint stir sticks to. So this part needs to be good and strong. And as you can kind of see here, I'm just going right around the edge, just giving that little hot glue barrier. Any part that there's a small little crack or hole where it didn't fill in exactly, I'm just filling it in with hot glue. And that way it's completely sealed all the way around. Now I am struggling with my glue gun here. This is a new glue gun that my husband got me, and it's one of those SureBonder, like cordless ones that you can charge, and I have had nothing but trouble with it. I keep trying to use it, and every once in a while a little bit will come out, but other than that I keep pulling the trigger and it's just like pushing the glue stick in there, but it's not actually pushing any glue out. So I don't know what the issue is with it, but I have had nothing but trouble with it. So I'm going back to my 40-year-old glue gun here, which is this trusty old guy. And we are just sealing off all of those edges. Like I said, I'm just kind of keeping the nozzle up in there just so it like really pushes the glue down in there. And here I'm getting out just a little bit, it's like a wood dowel. I think it's like a 1/2 inch square wood dowel. And I'm taking this little mini, like it's just a cutoff saw that I got at Harbor Freight. And I like it because it's so small and it doesn't make a lot of sawdust, so I can use it right there in my craft room. It wasn't cutting all the way through this dowel, and I'm not sure why. It would cut like most of the way through, and then I would have to flip it over and cut it. So a couple of my cuts were just a little off. Since I flipped it, I didn't get it exactly lined up, so I had to cut a few extra, but I finally got it. Okay, and I was finally able to get 4 cut that were almost exactly the same length. So they will be close enough. And then here I'm going in and cutting some of my Jenga blocks in half. I didn't measure them, I just kind of eyeballed it, because when you do glue the Jenga blocks onto the front side of your little knife holder, there's a little bit of give, so you can kind of put a little bit of spacing around the blocks, so they don't have to be exact as long as they're pretty close. And I mean, you could measure them and actually draw a line if you wanted to, but like I said, it's not going to be that big of a deal. So I just cut, I would say probably 10 or 15 of them in half, and I will show you later why we needed some cut in half. It was so we could offset some of those, so we won't have a straight line up and down on all of the Jenga blocks when we get to the end. Now we are going to start staining. That is just some antiquing wax, and I'm adding a little bit of water to it, and I'm going to use that as my stain. And it actually works really well. So I just brush it on and then go back and kind of wipe it off like you would with a stain. On this frame part, you will see some of it in the end, so I just went ahead and did all 3 sides that you can see, and that way if any showed through the Jenga blocks or anything, it wouldn't look weird. And then I'm going through and doing all of my Jenga blocks and those 4 little square wooden dowels that I'm going to use to put the corners together. Now I'm taking the 4 square dowels and I'm putting half wood glue and half hot glue, and I'm putting it on each corner. I am making sure the side that is flat from my foam board is laying down against my table, because I want the side that has a little bit of space on the inside of my wood holder, and that way I've got a flat surface to glue all of my wood to on the outside. I'm going back here and adding just a little bit of extra hot glue around the inside edges, just so it holds really well until I get it put together completely. And then I will go back and add a little bit more glue once I get it put together. So I'm making sure it lines up here before I put the glue on. And then I'm doing the same thing here. I'm putting half wood glue, and then I'm going to put half hot glue, and that way it will have a better hold in the end. And the same thing here, I'm going to put the side that is completely flat up against me, so it will be on the outside, so I will have a flat surface to glue my wood to. And then here I'm going back again and putting a little bit of extra hot glue just around those connection points so that it holds really well while that wood glue is drying. And I am going to set this down and put a little bit of weight on top of it just so it dries really good and connected where that wood glue is. Once this has a chance to dry for a little bit, I'm going to go back and take some more of my foam board, and I'm going to fill in the sides where I just made edges by putting those wooden dowels in. I'm going to fill in those side pieces. I'm going to glue them in just like I did before, and that way I will have a flat surface to glue to on the sides of the box as well. And then after I do the sides, I'm going to go back and do the bottom of the box the same way. I'm going to cut out a piece of foam board and hot glue it in like I did before, filling in any little cracks. And by the time I get done with this piece, it is so sturdy and so heavy, and I cannot wait for you guys to see the end product. Like, This is probably the proudest I have ever been of a DIY I've made. It is so absolutely adorable and it looks so high-end. I cannot stress that enough. Like, it literally looks like I've paid at least $100 for it. And here I'm going to show you guys something I found at the Dollar Tree the other day. It's just these little soak-off caps for when you have acrylic nails, and I thought those would be great for putting on your fingers when you're having to touch hot glue, because they're just little silicone finger covers. So if you're in your Dollar Tree to get essentials, you might look and see if they have those. Here I'm going back in every little corner where everything meets and just kind of putting another bead of hot glue just to make sure this is good and sturdy, because I don't ever want it to fall apart. So I'm taking my 5-gallon paint stir sticks and I am going to kind of measure on the sides here. Instead of actually measuring with the measuring tape, I'm just holding them up there and marking them off, and that way I'm exactly sure they're right where they need to be. So I'm marking them with my pencil, making sure how many I need across, and with the length that I made it, I needed 3, and that fit exactly. So here I'm going to take and stack up my stir sticks and just take my little miter saw. I got this at Harbor Freight. It comes with the saw and the miter saw box, and I think it was about $10. And I'm going to cut through all 3 of those. I do go back later when I'm making the paint stir sticks for the back side, and I take them out to the garage and use my chop saw to cut them, which is much quicker and easier. But this is an easy option if you don't have like a chop saw. And here I'm just going back and make sure that my cut was right, make sure that they fit correctly. And then I'm marking off the other side so that I can cut those. And I want you guys to tell me, is this a DIY that you would try to create yourself? Now I'm going to take my little ladybug vacuum cleaner. I saw that on someone else's channel and I had to get one, and it works so well. She's not lying. And here I'm just kind of sanding the edges just to make sure they're smooth before I go to stain these. There's the ladybug again. So I'm getting my little plate back out, and I'm gonna dump in a little bit more of that antiquing wax. A little bit more water. And then just brush it on to all of the edges and then wipe it back down. And here I'm going in with some Waverly chalk paint. I believe it's in hazelnut. It's a color that's really close to a wood stain, and I'm going to paint the foam board on all of the sides. And that's just so if you see through any of the cracks in the Jenga blocks or the little paint stir sticks, that it's going to look like wood behind it. It's not going to look like, hey, there's a white foam board back there. And then at this point, I realize I have not made a bottom yet, so I go back and make a bottom exactly the way I made the sides and the front and back. I cut out a piece of foam board, glue around, and then I go back and paint that as well with that hazelnut paint. And as you can see, I've moved the skewers into the arena, And here I'm just trying to measure how long I need to cut them, and I wanted them to be about level with the top of where the wood and where the box is going to end. I wanted them to be level there. So I took a tip I saw on someone else's page and I used a new pair of dog toenail clippers, and you could cut 2 at a time. And this took forever, and I tried using my miter saw box and cutting like a whole bag. That did not work at all. So I continued cutting and cutting and cutting and cutting and cutting, and then I realized, oh, I can tape them together and use my chop saw. So much faster, do them all that way, because you have to cut like 5 million. You can get the skewers at the Dollar Tree, you can get them at Walmart, whichever you prefer. I got mine at Walmart only because my husband was going to Walmart to get essentials, and so he just got them there. Here I'm taking my now dry paint stir sticks. I'm putting on a little bit of wood glue and a little bit of hot glue, just so it gets that instant hold, but it also gets that stronger wood glue hold. And I'm just gonna glue all of these paint sticks down. This is on one of the ends of the box. Still making sure that they're all going to line up and not hang over the edge too much. Like I said, I'm putting a little bit of wood glue and then also some hot glue. And I'm kind of trying to remember to put some in between each of the paint stir sticks. And I don't think I remember to do that with every single one of them, but I do put a lot of glue on there so they get good and stuck down. Taking one of my Dollar Tree clamps and just kind of letting it help hold for a minute while it gets that hot glue kind of dried in place. Going back in on the other end and doing the same thing, just putting some wood glue and some hot glue. And then lining it up exactly with the edge, using one of my clamps again. And I'm trying to keep this in frame as much as possible, but because I can't see, it's kind of hard. So, forgive me. And here I'm kind of going back in and just filling in any little cracks that there are in between the wood, just again to give it a little bit more strength. You wouldn't necessarily have to do that. And now I'm gonna start with my Jenga blocks. The tumbling tower blocks that come from the Dollar Tree, some of the sets come with those darker Jenga blocks in them, and that's what these are. I did not do anything to those. I didn't stain them or anything. They came that color. So I'm going to actually invert the colors on the one from Anthropologie. The darker color is the majority of them, like where my ones that are stained are. And I wanted more of that stained look all over so it would match the sides and the back, and then do that darker strip down the middle. So here I'm kind of trying to figure out my layout, and this is where those half blocks come in. On about every other strip, I'm putting one of the half blocks at the end, and then on the next stripe up, I'm putting the half block at the other end, if that makes sense, so that they will be offset just a little bit on each row. So I tried to put this in not so sped up so you could kind of see what I was doing. I do realize here in a minute that that very first row that I laid down should have had the half block at the end rather than right there by the dark block that's in the center. So I do go back and move that over to the end and readjust those 3 blocks. And I'm so glad I did, because I'm very OCD and that would have bugged the crap out of me. Is anyone else OCD like me? Like, that would have drove me insane. So here everything's looking good. And like I said, I get these glued down and then I realized that they're backwards. So I do go back and fix that. You can see that I've already fixed it there. And then I sped this up for you guys just so you didn't have to watch every single one. I did the same thing on this. I did a little bit of wood glue and a little bit of hot glue on each block, just so it would have that extra sticking power, because I didn't want any of these to fall down. And then when I get done, they lined up at the top. On the back here, I just laid those out like I did the sides. I measured them and drew them out with a pencil, and then I took them out to my chop saw and cut them off. And there is one right there in the center that I actually had to cut down one of my stir sticks to be a little bit thinner, because if you used solid pieces, they were too wide. So I did go back and I tried to hide it in the middle. Originally I was going to put it off to one end, and I thought, nope, that will drive me crazy too. It will be off-centered. So, and it still is off-centered a little, but I tried to kind of hide it in there so it wasn't as noticeable. And with these, I'm just lining them up along the top edge, because the top edge is the one that was the most important. I needed everything to be completely at the same level up there. And I hope that all of this makes sense. And if you have any questions, if there's something I didn't explain very well, then put a comment down below and I'll answer you as soon as I see it. I try to go into as much detail as I can without boring you. Here I am trying to use that glue gun again, and you can see the glue stick is just balling up in there and no glue is coming out. I don't know what the issue is with it. Like I said, that thing is brand new and it's just, it does not like me. I was so excited to have a cordless glue gun, and the crafting gods were like, nope, not gonna happen. And I'm almost to the last one here. And the bottom, I didn't put any wood on it. I just left it as the foam board. I mean, you could finish that if you wanted to. No one's going to see it. So I just left it as just the painted foam board. So I let this set for just a little bit, and then we're going to put our skewers in. I'm going to set all of these out here. I think I ended up putting in, if I remember correctly, about 15 to 17 packages of skewers. Now, that was partially my fault. I thought I was going to use about 10 packages, but I guess I did make the actual size of this a little bit larger than I had originally planned. So, that is it, guys. It is so cute. The pictures do not do it justice. It is adorable and looks so expensive in person. You guys definitely need to make one. So I wanted to pop in and let you guys know that this is my first mega video for all things summer farmhouse. I'm putting all of my summer DIYs together for those of you that enjoy a one-stop shop for your DIYs. If you're looking for summer farmhouse DIY inspiration, this video is definitely for you. If you are new to my channel, make sure to introduce yourself in the comments below. And if you enjoyed today's video, make sure to give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing so that you will be notified every time I upload a new video. I will be posting new DIY videos every week, and you don't want to miss the upcoming holiday DIYs I have planned. Plus, I have some exciting collabs coming up as well. Also, let me know which one of these DIYs was your favorite because I love getting you guys' input. Now we're going to make these cute little dessert trays for those summer barbecues. They turned out so cute, and these would even be adorable for like a wedding, like a farmhouse wedding. So I'm going to take these tins that I got from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to pull off that twine. Keep that because we're going to put it back on at the end. I just didn't want to have to tape it off and everything. It was just going to be easier to take it off and put it back on. And now we're going to take our burner covers, and those are from the Dollar Tree as well. They come in a 2-pack. So this whole thing cost about $3, $3.50. I'm going to take my Quick Hold E6000 again, and I'm going to put some, I don't cover the entire area, I cover part of it, and then I cover the other part in hot glue, just so I get that long hold, but I also get that quick hold. And then I'm going to put it down in the center. And I kind of go back around and just add some more glue just to make sure it's really stuck on there. I don't want any of my desserts getting on there and then them flopping off in the floor. I'm going to do the same thing on this one. And now I'm going to take these little beaded necklace, those from Dollar Tree Party Spot, and I'm taking some of the gel super glue, and I'm just going to glue it down around the edge so that it gives it that wood bead look without having to hand place 500 million wood beads. And this is cheaper, so now I'm going to spray paint. I'm just showing you spray painting all of those. And now I'm going to attach that jute twine back down. And you guys, how cute are these? I go through and trim those hairs off, those little fuzzy hairs. You can also burn them off. But look how cute these look. And like for a summer farmhouse wedding, oh, so adorable. Let me know what you think. Okay, here's the supplies you are going to need. And we are going to start. This is just a little sign I found at Dollar Tree, and that little centerpiece is connected and you can flip it over. So I thought it would work perfect for this. So I'm going to take some of the Dollar Tree spackle, and I'm just going to fill those holes because I'm not going to hang this up after I get done with it, so I just wanted the holes to be gone. And it kept wanting to squirt through the hole, so that's why I had to wipe on the back side. And I'm gonna sit that to the side. Here I'm taking my sanding sponge from the Dollar Tree, or you could take sandpaper, and I'm trying to get that glitter off. And once the glitter came off, I realized that the letters were still kind of bumpy, and I knew if I painted over that with my chalk paint, you would still be able to see the outline. So that's why I'm doing some extra sanding here, because I did not want any lettering to be able to be seen behind my chalk paint. So I scrubbed and scrubbed and scrubbed until it was basically all white. I took almost all of the color off. And I did go ahead and sand down at the bottom just a little. I thought because it was so slick, it might help rough up the, oh, brain fart. Rough up so when I paint it would stick better. Blip, blip, blip. Sorry. And here I'm gonna take my white Waverly chalk paint and give it a good thick coat all over. I'm also going to do the edges just because I wanted that finished look all over. I'm gonna do the front and the back of that little part that flips around, and I'm also gonna do the edges of that opening. Sorry if you hear barking in the background. That's my little pup. And if you ever hear a little jingling in the background, that's her walking around. Do any of you guys have pups? Here I am taking my little candle holder from the Dollar Tree and I'm giving it a coat of my white chalk paint. Now I'm gonna go back in and take some of my black chalk paint on just a super dry brush. I just put very little. I didn't want like super heavy distressing. I just wanted it to be pretty light. So I went back in with that and just kind of dry brushed it all over this little wood piece. I made sure to get both sides of that part that rotates. All right, now I've got that all done. I'm kind of holding it up to see if I wanted to also hit this with a little bit of the black chalk paint as well. I thought it would just make it look a little bit more cohesive if it also had a little bit of that black paint just kind of barely touching all over it. Then I went back and took the wet rag and just kind of wiped just a little bit to kind of cut down on the paint strokes. I wanted it just more to look a little bit dirty rather than to have like the actual strokes. And here I'm taking my 2 Jenga blocks that I had also painted white and just kind of distressing those just a bit. Now I'm going to take a picture of a pig that I printed out with my printer. I just Google searched pig and printed it out, got it to the size I wanted, and then on the back side of that piece of paper I just scribbled with my pencil lead all over. And now I'm gonna take just something sharp and trace over it. I was trying to show you there that you could see my pencil lines, but of course it went too fast and you couldn't see it. Fail. So I'm just drawing, like just tracing around the outside of the pig all over just so I can see where I need to paint. And you can kind of tell there where my pencil lead marks are. And then I'm gonna get I was gonna try to use a paint pen and it was dried up. So then I tried my other paint pen and it was dried up as well. So then I thought, well, we're just gonna go in with a paintbrush. So I just took a super fine paintbrush so that I could get around the edges really well. And then just colored in the lines like we're in first grade again. And I am obsessed with pigs. Like everything in my house is pigs. So that's why I went with a pig. You could do a cow, you could do a chicken, you could do a windmill, you could put whatever you wanted at the top. I just went with a pig because that's my decor. and then I just free-handed at the top. I put the, and underneath the pig I put is, and then through the middle of the pig I'm gonna write kitchen. So it will say the kitchen is, and then on the reversible part I'm gonna put closed on one side and open on the other. Here I'm trying to decide if I want to completely freehand this or if I want to sketch it out with a pencil, and I just went with, hey, let's just completely freehand it. So it doesn't look awesome. I wish I had went in with the pencil first and kind of sketched it out, but you know what, no biggie. YOLO, right? You only live once, so. And then I kind of go back in and just kind of thicken up some of those lines a little bit. It just kind of gives it a little bit nicer look. And it also gives you the freedom to, if you had a crooked line or something like that, you can kind of straighten it back up. So it gives you a little bit of wiggle room with your freehanding. And I just kind of wiggled around until it looked good. I mean, I just kind of kept going back over it until I was happy with how it looked. And then I flipped it over and did open on the other side. And I'm sorry that I jumped back and forth in between the two DIYs. I will try to get to where when I'm doing a DIY, I do one from start to finish and then start the next one and do it from start to finish. I'm scatterbrained. This is, welcome to my world. This is how my brain operates. It just goes from one thing to the next and then back to the other thing and then back again and then squirrel and then, you know, that's how my brain works. So if you're not like that, I apologize. Apologize for the craziness. And I hope you guys like this DIY here. I saw this sign when I was in Dollar Tree getting some essentials the other day, and I was like, oh, this would be so cute as a little "the kitchen is open or closed" sign. I don't know why or what made me think of that, but that's what popped into my brain. And originally I was gonna make it to hang on the wall, and then when I got it home and I saw that little candle holder sitting there, I thought, you know what, this would be cute. And that way you could sit it over like by your stove and the kids can see this mama is off duty. Are any of you other mamas or dads ready for your kids to go back to school? Mine are teenagers, so they're a little older. They can fend for themselves, so it's not been too bad, but I'm ready for them to get back in a routine because we've gotten awfully lazy around here, and I'm afraid when we do go back to school, it's going to be super hard on some children. So, who is with me? So as you can see, I've free-handed this also. I should have sketched it out as well, but you know what? Farmhouse, you can be a little messy with it, so. And after I get this all painted, then I decided I wanted to put a little bit of greenery at the top. I thought that would be kind of cute to add a little lamb's ear or something. So here you're gonna see me get out the lamb's ear and kind of play around with it for a minute. I couldn't decide if I wanted lamb's ear or lavender. And the lavender would have been cute also because it's actually what I'm gonna use in the other DIY. And I kind of lay it out here, and like I said, I kind of play with it and see what looks best. And then I also got out a little bit of ribbon, and I couldn't decide between the two. I'm very indecisive, so I just went with both of them. I thought, well, I can't decide, so let's just put them both on there. And I just kind of folded it up there. I didn't even tie a bow. I just kind of folded it, and then I tied a little piece of jute around, jute twine around the center and just tied it in a knot. And then I did the same thing with the other little ribbon. Cut some little dovetails on the end. Same thing, I just kind of held that up there, tied it with some jute in the center. And I tried to make that ribbon just a tiny bit smaller than the one underneath it, and that way you could see both of them really well. And then I kind of glued them together a little bit just so they would stick together a little bit better and lay prettier. And then I'm going to hot glue all of this down in the corner. So what have you guys been missing most during this quarantine? I'm just ready to get back out and about. I didn't realize how hard it would be to stay home for so long. You always think, oh, it would be so relaxing and so fun, but it's just, you need a little interaction occasionally. Am I wrong? And there I'm kind of gluing down the lamb's ear, just like I said, so it will lay a little bit better. I kind of wanted it a certain look to it. And I'm kind of fluffing the bow. Sorry, I got my head in the way. Getting rid of all the little stringies. And here I'm trying to figure out how it's going to sit best on this candle holder. You know, it's got that open spot, so I ended up taking a little bit of one of the canvases that I cut off. You can see here, I'm just cutting off the end, and I kind of like roll it up and stuff it down in there, and then just glue it, and that kind of fills the hole. Then I'm going to go ahead and glue across through there and set my sign down, just because I wanted my sign to be exactly in the center. And then I'm going to take one of the Jenga blocks and put a little bit of hot glue and a little bit of this, I think it's like Fix All adhesive. That's also from the Dollar Tree. You could use E6000, just hot glue, you know, whatever. And I kind of squeezed a little bit of that on the side, and it wasn't wanting to stick super well. So I do go back in a minute and just run a little bead of hot glue kind of right there in the seam of where that sits, almost like caulking. And then that Jenga block, I actually stood up on its side so I would get a little bit more contact with it, so it would help hold that sign upright. And I haven't had any problems with this sign so far, and it's held up just fine. And it seems to be really strong, like it doesn't act like it wants to try to fall over or anything. So that worked out well by laying the front one down, and then the back one I kind of sat up. I love both of these little DIYs so much. They made such a cute little addition. Now we're going to take our plates from the Dollar Tree. I got a large, a medium, and a bowl, and those were all from the Dollar Tree. And these candlesticks are from Amazon. You would not have to use the ones from Amazon. You could use some from the Dollar Tree as well. I just ordered them on Amazon. You have to order more up front, but they end up being about the same price as the Dollar Tree ones, so it's just kind of up to you. I'm going to take some frog tape. You also, just as a side note, you wouldn't have to get this exact plate. You get whichever one you like. If you want a round one, get a round one. If you want a pizza tray and a cake pan, do that. If you want the burner covers, do that. I just like the look of these plates, how they were kind of rounded, still kind of cute. I kind of wanted like an elegant theme with this because this is going to go in my kitchen. So I'm taping off with some painter's tape. I usually use frog tape. It seems to work better for me, but you could use electrical tape, the blue kind of tape, just whatever floats your boat. And I'm also wrapping it in aluminum foil, and that is just to prevent overspray because I'm using spray paint. I didn't want there to be overspray anywhere else on the plate, so I just went ahead and wrapped it with foil on the front and the back, and that way I don't have any extra cleanup later. I'm just kind of taping off like a portion. I didn't want it to be a straight line or anything in particular. Like, I just kind of wanted it to be just random, I guess, is the look I was going for. So I end up doing a stripe on the bottom plate, this corner on this plate, and then another corner, an opposite corner on the bowl. And then I'm taking my sanding sponge and I'm sanding that down just a little bit so that the paint has something to grip to. Sometimes if you're spray painting on porcelain like that, that's really slick, the paint doesn't want to stick very well, so I thought I would just sand it down just to kind of rough it up enough that it has a little bit of grip to it. And then here I'm trying to decide if I want to go with the same angle on the other plate or if I want to change it up. And this is where I decided to do each layer a little bit different, just so it had a little bit of something, you know, a little bit of something extra. And this is one of those parts where you make it your own. If you want a pop of color, you want a bright red, you want a bright blue, you want just a brown. I mean, if you're neutral, do that. If you want to paint the whole plate a color, do that. If you want to leave it plain white and do a pop of color on your little candelabra part, do that. You just do whatever makes your heart happy. That is what crafting is all about. If it makes you happy, do it. That's what I'm here for, to inspire you to do what makes you happy. That's why I love crafting so much. I get so excited, and I love that you guys love to share that with me because that's what makes me enjoy this so much. Like, I love sharing this with you guys, and I love sparking something in you. Like, if you see something that I'm doing and you're like, hey, that gives me an idea, and I'm gonna make this and I'm gonna love it because I made it with my own hands. I'm here to help make you happy, and in the meantime, you guys help make me happy because I'm getting to do what I love doing. And you guys are part of that. So I'm excited. And I hope you guys stick around because I'm happy to have so many new friends. And here you can kind of see me taping off the back. Sorry, I get sidetracked. There I go with the squirrel. You know me, every video I have to talk about that because that's basically everyday life. And here I'm just taping all that off. We're gonna take this bright gold spray paint, and here's my fancy little spray painting gloves because I always end up with spray paint all over my hands if I don't wear my gloves. And I'm just spray painting the parts that I have taped off. And then I'm gonna let it sit out here and dry a little bit. And then we are going to take it back inside. We're going to peel the tape off where it's not 400 degrees because it's so hot here in Arkansas. And then I'm going to take it back outside and spray it with clear spray paint. Just clear, shiny spray paint. Just so it kind of seals everything in. That gold isn't going to scratch now. So here I'm just kind of showing you what we look like now that we're all sprayed and pretty with our shiny gold. Now I'm going to take some E6000 and my hot glue, and I'm going to put a little bit of each. I'm not going to layer them on top of each other, but I'm going to put a little bit of the E6000 and a little bit of the hot glue. The hot glue will give us that quick hold just so it doesn't fall apart first thing. And the E6000 will give us that strong hold for the long haul. So as you can see, I'm kind of splitting it up here where I'm doing a pretty big portion of E6000 and then just a little bit of hot glue. And I like to flip my plate upside down and line up my candlestick that way. I always get it straighter when I do it that way. And on this first level, the taller level, I'm putting the candlestick right side up. And then on the next level, I thought it looked better to match up those top parts. So I'm going to flip the candlestick upside down. And there I kind of went back and added in a little bit more hot glue and E6000 just around the edge of the candlestick. I thought that would give it a little extra strong hold. And so far, I made this earlier this week, and so far it has held up wonderfully. Here, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to attach it to the bottom of the bowl first. And here's a little quick tip. If you can't get your sticker off, use a, this is just an embossing heat tool or a blow dryer or something warm, and that sticker will peel right off. Leaves no residue behind, by the way, too. So here's what I was talking about, where I'm going to put it upside down. And then you will see when we get done how cute it is by doing that. And here I'm doing the same thing. I'm putting some E6000 and then I'm going to go back in the empty spots and add hot glue. I can't wait till you guys can see the finished product because it turns out so cute. And I hope if you guys make this that you go over to Instagram, post a photo, and tag me in it because I love seeing what you guys have made. I get so excited when I see that someone has tagged me and I get to go see what you guys created. So I promise I do see the pictures if you tag me, and I promise I do get excited. So here I'm actually measuring just because it's a little harder for me to get it exactly centered when it's facing up. When it's upside down, I don't have such an issue, but when it's right side up, it's harder for me to tell exactly where the center is, and I wanted to make sure it was really centered. So I kind of drew a little pencil mark where I had it sat, and that way when I go to sit it back down, I was trying to show you here, I just put a couple of little pencil marks, and that way I can get it centered pretty quickly since I'll have hot glue on there and it'll be drying pretty quick. Same thing here. I'm just putting some E6000 and then in the empty spots I'm adding some hot glue. And then I'm just putting some pressure on for a minute till that hot glue has a chance to dry. And then now I'm going to try to get this centered, and I'm going to do the same exact thing. I'm kind of measuring to see where the halfway point is, and I'm just going to kind of draw a little X so I know right where the center point is. And since this one had that hole in the top, I do end up putting, I think I had like a little sponge or something over there, and I put something down in there just to fill in that center point so it had more of a connection spot. Hopefully that makes sense. Plant stand, whatever you want to call it. Then we've got our little tier tray. What do you guys think with how I dress this up? Do you think it looks cute? I love it so much. Now we are going to make a cute little faux vase. I'm going to use that little tin that I found in the garden section at the Dollar Tree. And then I'm going to use the actual plunger part of a plunger from the Dollar Tree. I took the dowel part out, and you can save that for another DIY. And I'm going to glue the plunger onto the top of the tin. I'm going to use that quick hold E6000 that I showed you earlier. And I'm going to also use some hot glue. What I wish I would have done before, and I started to do it earlier and I decided not to because I didn't think it would make that big deal. I wish I had cut that little rim off of the plunger before I ever stuck it on. Like I said, I start to try to cut it off here, and it kind of wants to try to pull the glue back a little bit. So I thought, well, I'll just cover it up with twine. And like I said, had I had it to do over, I would have removed it. Here is, you can use jute twine from the Dollar Tree. You can use nautical rope from the Dollar Tree. I had some, this was a flatter twine that I had gotten on Amazon. I decided to go with it just because it was a little bit wider than the Dollar Tree twine. So use whatever you have on hand. I mean, any of it will work. This is just what I went with. And I'm going to speed this up so that you don't have to watch me, because you know how to. I just kind of went around. You don't have to glue every single row. I did at first and then toward the end, but in the middle, I just wrapped and wrapped and didn't put any glue. So it's up to you. If you want to use a lot of glue, you can. If you don't have to. And we're going to speed it up to the end here. And I'm just going, like I said, at the top part, it didn't want to stick super well if I was just wrapping it. So I did use quite a bit of glue on the actual plunger part. And then I made sure that I went ahead and wrapped the twine kind of around the top there so you couldn't tell it was a plunger. And then I went back in that little groove where there was like a pretty big divot, and I put just a couple more rows of twine, and it kind of filled it back in so it wasn't just like this weird stuck out part, if that makes sense. And now I'm going to take my lighter and just kind of burn off any of those frayed pieces. You don't have to do this. I just like the cleaner look. I'm going to take some frog tape. You could use electrical tape. You could use painter's tape, masking tape, duct tape. And I'm just going to tape off an area. I wanted just kind of a abstract look. So it kind of gave that boho feel. And then I'm going to go in with my black chalk paint. And that was another personal preference. You could use a different color if you want. And you would not have to do this part if you don't want to. I just thought it gave it a really cool effect. It looks really cool after I get done. So you do what makes you happy. I'm just here to inspire you to create something that you will love for your home. So if you love it, that's all that matters. And you're just going to paint, paint, paint. I used kind of a little chippy brush, but it's one of those little short ones. So it had firmer bristles. And I kind of didn't paint toward the tape. I started on the tape and came in. And that way it didn't bleed underneath the tape, because you can't get it stuck down super well on this rope and twine. And then I just kind of use a lot of paint and just get in those grooves. It doesn't have to be perfect. It will still look cute from far away, I promise. And then once you get it all painted, we are going to take off that tape. And look how cute! Is that not adorable? I love it so much. And I'm going to stick some cute little like palm type leaves in it. And it looks so cute. And you could use this inside or outside. So, hopefully you guys love it. Make sure you let me know in the comments down below if you liked any of these, which one was your favorite, and just say hi. Like, I love it when my followers say hi. Alright guys, we're going to make this cute little lantern. I'm going to take 2 of these cute little signs from the Dollar Tree, one of those little, I think it was like a lantern that was in the garden section, this little hexagon box. I hope that's a hexagon. I'm having a brain fart, so. And then some of these paint stir sticks. Those I didn't get at the Dollar Tree, but they are only $1 at Walmart or Lowe's or Home Depot. So we're still in that Dollar Tree price range. So I'm going to pull the center out of those little signs and keep those for later. You might use those in another DIY. And then I'm going to sand that center just a little bit since it pulled the paper up. You wouldn't have to do this if it didn't pull the paper up on yours, but I just didn't want you to be able to see. And you won't really see it much anyways, so it should be fine if you don't sand it. And I'm going to show you a quick way to get those stickers off. If you heat it up with a heat tool or a hair dryer, usually it will pull right off. It's like it heats up the adhesive, so just a little trick for you. And here I'm going to sand the top of this. It had a little bit of embossing on it and some glitter, and I didn't want that to show once I painted it, so I just sanded it down a bit. And I just kept sanding until it was smooth enough that I didn't think it would show through the paint. And here's my little piggy vacuum cleaner. I used to have a ladybug, and one of my viewers told me that they had a pig, so I had to go find it. I just thought I would show you guys that real quick. So here I'm going to take my paint stir sticks, and I'm going to put 2 in each corner. This is my Quick Hold E6000. You could use regular E6000, you could use just hot glue. I used a little bit of both. And then I'm just going to press it in the corner and hold it for just a minute to give that hot glue a second to set. And that way it will hold real good while the E6000 dries. And then here I'm going to take a little bit of hot glue and put it right through that groove so that the paint stir sticks will sit really straight together. I wanted a really crisp edge. And then I finished the other 3 exactly the same way. And here I'm going to put that top on, and then I'm going to run a little bit of glue down in there and then pull it up against the edge and clamp it off to hold it for a little bit. Now I'm going to run some of that Quick Hold E6000 along part of the edges of that little lid from that box. So I'm going to run it along like 3 of the edges, and then I'm also going to use some hot glue just to get that quick hold, and then the E6000 will give it a better bond. And then I'm going to stick it down and hold it down for just a second till that hot glue has a chance to set. And here I'm taking the hot glue and I'm just kind of running a bead along each side, so it gives it almost that like you put some caulk along through there. Like it just kind of gives it more of a finished look. And I'm going to put this little lantern down. And if you couldn't find one of those, here is one of the little napkin rings from the Dollar Tree. You could also use those. I just kind of wanted to give you options if you couldn't find any of the little lanterns. And then that was a shower ring for your shower curtain. And I snipped it off with some wire snippers, and I'm going to use that as sort of a faux handle. And I do end up taking this little ring off the top of that. I just remove it. And now I'm using, same thing, the Quick Hold E6000 along with some hot glue to put my little handle on there. And then I'm going to run a little bit more hot glue just around where I connected it, just to make sure it's really stuck on there good. And make sure there weren't any fat blobs of like hot glue sitting there. And then you spray paint it whatever color you want, and here's how it turns out. What do you guys think? Do you like it? I thought it turned out really cute, and I can't wait to put it on my back porch. Such a cute, fun summer DIY. Alright, for this little herb planter, wall hanger, I mean you could use it for whatever, but it would be a cute little herb garden for inside or outside of your house. I'm taking this sign, and this is a sign I actually got beside the road one day. Somebody had put it out. You could use just a plain piece of wood. You could use a sign from the Dollar Tree. Just get creative. And I'm just giving it a coat of, this is actually a really dark gray chalk paint. This chalk paint I got at either Lowe's or Home Depot because Walmart has been out for so long, so I couldn't find any of the Waverly chalk paint, which is what I normally use just because it's a little cheaper. But this covers really well. And then once I put 3 coats of that on, and then I'm going to take, that's the Waverly chalk paint in ink, and it's just a little bit darker than what I used on the sign. And I'm kind of going over and just kind of dry brushing just to give it some texture and dimension, just to kind of darken it up just a little bit. You could kind of still see the words poking back through, and this kind of covered them up so you can't see them anymore. This would be a step that you wouldn't have to do. I just wanted to do it because it kind of, I prefer the look of the little bit of distressing and dry brushing over the top. Even though it wasn't super noticeable, it just looked really cute in my opinion. And while I had just a second while I was just showing that part, if you're new, make sure that you introduce yourself down in the comments below because I would love to say hi. And subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I will be posting a bunch of new videos coming up in the next week or two, so just FYI. And I'm fixing to get out these buckets that I found at the Dollar Tree. They're just a little white plastic bucket. They come in a set of 3. And I'm showing you here, I'm going to make the buckets look like they're that metal enamel look, like the old school metal enamel. And you can use chalk paint, you can use a paint pen, you could use a permanent marker. You could use any of those to get this effect. I just went with the chalk paint because I like that matte finish. And I'm taking just a sponge paintbrush, and you just get just a little bit on your brush, and then you just take it and you can kind of, with that sponge brush, you can just kind of go around the edge. And if it's a little messy, that is fine because that enamel look was always a little bit messy and rustic and farmhouse. And I'm going around the top rim, the bottom rim, and then I'm also going to paint the handle minus the part right in the center, because when we get to that part, I'm going to wrap some twine around to give that little wooden handle effect like the old school buckets had on them. So I hope that makes sense. I will show all of these steps in the video, so if you don't understand, just keep watching. I apologize if you hear the lawnmower in the background. My son decided he was going to mow the yard today, so, and of course it was right when I was going to be doing this video. That's okay though. How many of you guys have teenagers, and are they tired of being home during quarantine? Mine are so ready to go back to school, which I never in a million years thought I would hear them say. And here I'm going to go back and show you, now that the rim has kind of dried, that enamel look. To get that farmhouse look, old metal enamel buckets and plates and all of that had that worn look to them where it would start to wear down, and this was before it got rusty. It would have like these spots like this where it would like kind of chip back. So that's what I was kind of showing you how to do. You just kind of run your paintbrush along through there and make a messy little spot. The messier the better. It doesn't have to be nice and neat, I promise. That gives you a more authentic look when it's messy. And here's where I'm taking, this is just twine from the Dollar Tree, just the jute twine. And I'm going to wrap it around the handle just in that spot that I didn't paint there. And that's because old metal buckets, like if you've ever seen one, like a true farmhouse bucket, has usually like a little wooden handle right there just to kind of make it a little easier on your hand for when you were carrying it. And so I'm kind of trying to mimic that look, just to kind of make it look a little bit more authentic and farmhouse. And I'm just taking some hot glue, kind of tacking it down, and it stayed in place really well. And now we've got all 3 of our buckets done. And I found these little push pin hooks at the Dollar Tree the other day. They're just a regular push pin and they have a little hook on the bottom. So I thought I'm going to try these out and see if it works, and it did end up working. So if you're able to find these, use these. If not, you could use just a little tiny like finishing nail or a little screw, just whatever you have. You could probably even use a thumbtack that didn't have the hook on it. That would probably work too. And here I'm just measuring just so I can get it somewhat even. It doesn't have to be perfect. You can kind of eyeball it. Like I said, I more just measured it just so the distance between each bucket would be about the same. And in between each one of my buckets, I did 10 inches in between. And then here's what it ends up looking like. So cute. It would be cute inside or outside. I just put a little bit of boxwood in it to kind of decorate it for you. This sign. Now we're gonna go on to our little tray. So again, you get the pleasure of watching me struggle to get this canvas off. I wish I would have thought to use that staple puller. And I cannot believe I did not think of that, but this one, I was actually not struggling too bad, like the staples were coming out. And then I got to the end and then it went downhill. It was like, nope, you thought this was gonna be easy. Tricked you. Not happening. So, cut out the rest of me struggling. And this one was a little bit rougher than most of them are. So I did take my sanding sponge from the Dollar Tree and just kind of sanded down the rough edges just a little bit. And I did the same technique here where I took some of the brown chalk paint mixed with a little bit of water, painted over it, and then wiped it back down with a paper towel. I did do some awesome videography here and cut most of it out of the shot, so I apologize, but it will get better. I promise. And now that we have finished our faux staining, we are going to do the same thing that we did on the last one, where we are going to line up our 10 jumbo popsicle sticks and we're going to glue them on. This time, because it did seep out just a little bit on the last one, I was a little bit more careful. I put the glue just a little farther out, and this time I did not have that problem with the glue coming through to the tray side. So cute. It kind of gives that faux shiplap look again. I'm going to take some of my nautical rope from the Dollar Tree, and I just kind of held it up there to see kind of how long I wanted my little handles to be, and then I cut the other one the same length, and then I just put a little bit of hot glue on the side there and held it into place for a minute. And then I put the other side down with some more hot glue and then did the same thing to the other end. And it made such a cute little tray. It's not very big, but it is so cute just to have like a little candle on, or you know, just whatever you want to place on it. It looked really cute when I put it on my table. Okay, we're gonna take our little cups from the Dollar Tree, and I got 2 of the large size and 2 of the smaller size. You can get these in any color that you want, and they don't have to be this exact cup. I just wanted that little arch detail on it. And when you're putting them together, you are going to make sure that you line up each one of those little seams, or I guess that's what you would call it, a seam. And I'm going to use, this is the E6000 Quick Hold, which is something new that I've found, and I'm also going to use some hot glue. I am going to put the E6000 in some spots and the hot glue in the other. I don't double it up to where it's on top of each other because I've found it doesn't stick as well if you do that. So I'm taking and doing 2 of those little areas with the E6000 and then skipping a spot, and that will be where my hot glue goes. And then the E6000 on the other side, and make sure to put the E6000 down first because the hot glue dries quicker than the E6000, so you don't want the hot glue to dry before you get all of the glue on. And here I was trying to use my Sure Bonder glue gun that you've seen me try to use in another video, and it still is not working, so not sure what the deal is, but that thing was a waste of money. So I don't suggest it. And here I'm just putting a bunch of pressure on to make sure that it gets a good seal in between the 2 cups. And I'm going to do the same with the smaller set of cups. And now I'm going to take out some wooden beads. You could use the ones from the Dollar Tree because you're going to be painting this anyways. These are some that I got from Amazon just because I use so many of them. I just ordered them in bulk on Amazon, and they actually break down to being cheaper than the Dollar Tree ones, but you have to order a larger quantity. So I was kind of trying to decide which size I wanted to use. I decided I wanted to use the larger ones that I had, and I figured out that there's the Dollar Tree ones if you wanted to switch those out for, I used the same size as the largest ones in those bags. I used 2 for each little section, and I put down some of the quick dry, or quick hold, I think it's called, E6000, and then I also put just a little bit of hot glue as well to hold it in place while the E6000 dries. Once I get the beads on there, I do put a little bit of hot glue also in between each of the beads, and that kind of just fills in the little crack that's in between each of the beads, plus helps it to kind of give an extra bond because it kind of connects them all together so they can't really fall off unless you're hitting it super hard. Now I'm going to take out my Waverly chalk paint, and this color is Ivory. You could use whatever color goes with your decor. I wanted to use the Ivory with the antiquing wax, just the brown antique wax. And here I'm kind of pulling off any little strings from the hot glue, just kind of making sure it's all wiped down, because that will show up once you paint because it's got such a smooth surface. And I am going to do 3 coats just because these are the colored glasses. I couldn't find any of the clear ones. I did notice the other day when I was in Dollar Tree, they do have the clear ones now. So if you can find the clear ones, you probably wouldn't have to put on as many coats, but at least 2, if not 3 coats of paint. And I would also suggest painting the inside of the cup that is going to be facing up. I didn't do that, mainly because it's going to be up on my mantle and you're not going to be able to see inside the cup. But it did make it hard for when I was trying to show you guys a picture of it at the end, because the little green color wanted to show through. But like I said, it's going to be up on my mantle, so in real life you won't be able to see inside. But if you're going to have it put somewhere where you will be able to see the inside, make sure you do paint the inside as well. Unless you get the clear cup, and then that probably wouldn't be necessary. And I am trying to be pretty careful about the brush strokes, just because that glass, well, it's not glass, it's plastic, but it's so smooth that the brush strokes really show. So just kind of be careful when you're going over it. You could even spray paint this if you wanted to. I just didn't because I wanted that kind of chalk finish. I do end up using the antiquing wax all over the cups, which you will see in a minute. And then after I use the antiquing wax, I use the clear wax and go over the entire cup, just to give it that like silky smooth texture that chalk paint has once you wax it. It looks so pretty. So go ahead and do that to the smaller set of cups as well. Like I said, go ahead and give those each at least 2 coats of paint, if not 3. And I tried to speed it up so you wouldn't have to watch forever and ever and ever. Okay, now you're going to take that antiquing wax and I dip my little, it's a tiny little chip brush, and I blot it off on a paper towel. At first I wasn't sure like how heavy I wanted the distressing to be, so just kind of blot it until you feel comfortable. And then I do figure out that I want it distressed pretty heavily because I want it to kind of have almost that carved wood look to it. Sorry if you hear the jingling in the background, that's my pooch. And then I try to do the wood beads also just a little bit heavier because I really want that look of like carved wood. And you just continue with your antiquing wax till your eyes are happy. You can do as much or as little as you want. And now I'm going to take that clear wax and I'm going to paint over everything, just a thin coat all over the beads, the cup, and everything, and that's going to give it that silky smooth finish. Plus it's going to blend in any like of the harsh streaks you had from the antique wax. And it looks so high-end. So I thought this one was really cute. We're going to create this little barbecue sign. I'm going to use a round sign from the Dollar Tree. That little pig was from the Target Dollar Spot for $1, and the barbecue letters were from the Target Dollar Spot. They were originally $3, but I got them half price for $1.50. So this sign will cost you about $3.50 to create. And I love anything that has a pig on it. You guys know that, so this is right up my alley. So I'm going to use the back side of the sign, and I took the little hanger off the back side of the pig, and I'm going to sand the letters down just so they won't show through. So I'm just going to paint it so that it will kind of all be just black and white to go with my farmhouse theme. So I'm just kind of getting it sanded down. Of course it made a mess. And then I took all of my letters off of the string. I just cut them apart and pulled the string loose. And I'm going to take my white Waverly chalk paint, and I'm going to give the back side of the sign and along the edges of the sign just a good coat of white paint. And this is all personal preference. If you wanted to go with a different color, you use whatever color matches your theme. And this only took one coat. I put a thicker coat on, and that covered it just fine. So, you know, depending on how much you put on there, it may need a second coat. And then I dried it with my little heat tool so that I could go along quicker. And I'm taking my ink chalk paint from Waverly, and I'm going to cover my pig and the letters. And I made sure to cover all of the edges too, since these will stick up off of the sign a little bit. You'll see those edges, so don't forget those. And be sure to also get down in all of those little grooves. It's got kind of that shiplap effect to it, so paint down in those grooves. And make sure if you end up creating any of this that you go over to Instagram, if you have Instagram, and post a photo and tag me in it, because I love to see y'all's creations. And then I will go ahead and finish off the other two letters off camera, because you guys know how to paint letters. So now I'm going to take, this is just my black paint pen, and I'm going to create a faux shiplap effect on the sign. And you can put your fake boards as wide as you want. I started them off wide, and I wanted them to be a little bit closer together, so I went back in and filled in each one of the holes where there was an empty spot. And you could use a permanent marker or black chalk paint there. And then here I'm taking some white chalk paint, and I'm taking like a pretty stiff chip brush and getting just a little bit of paint on there, and I'm going back over those lines just so it blurs the lines a little and gives it that kind of distressed shiplap look. From far away, it is so cute. And it's super easy to create. You can't really mess this up. If you get too much on there, you can always go back over it with white chalk paint to fix your mistake. So don't be scared to try it. So we're gonna stick our pig and our letters on. I'm just kind of laying them out to see where I think they look good. And if you couldn't find the barbecue letters since they were on clearance, you could use just the pig and stick it right in the middle. You could buy letters from Walmart or Hobby Lobby. You could even, you know, write some words on there with a paint pen or something like that if you wanted a certain saying. Like I said, this is just for inspiration for you, give you some ideas of something you could create, but make it for you. Make it what fits your home and your lifestyle. I'm going to take some of this black and white. I love this kind of farmhouse ribbon. And all I'm doing is I'm going to kind of fold it over like that, and I'm going to pinch it down in the middle. And it's just going to create a quick and easy little bow. Since it does have wire in the edges, it's super easy to get it to kind of fluff up and look cute. I'm tying a little knot in the center just to give it a little something extra. You wouldn't have to do that. You could also use a piece of that ribbon in the center, and you don't have to put a bow on it at all if you don't want to. So it's whatever makes your heart happy, you do that. And then I'm going to stick that through that hole, and this will cover up the hole as well. And then I'm going to glue it down on the back side. And then I'm going to take another piece of the jute twine, and I'm going to just glue down a little loop on the back side that you can hang it with. And I just glued down the edges of my ribbon right there just because I wanted it to stay away from the letters. But here I'm just putting a little bit of glue, and you can see I just kind of made a little loop, and now I can hang it on my wall. What do you guys think? Is it cute? I love pigs. Alright guys, we're going to take some of these foam Dollar Tree wreath forms, and we are going to glue them together, and we are going to spray paint them with terracotta spray paint and make them look like a terracotta planter. And I'm going to put these on my porch, and they end up so cute. So here I'm just taking those wreath forms and I'm gluing them together. On the next one I actually used some E6000 instead of just hot glue. I used both. I recommend doing that. It seemed to stick a little bit better, and it didn't have so many of those little flyaways from the hot glue. And like I said, it just looks better. So I would recommend doing that instead of just the hot glue. And here's a little tip for you. If you will put a little bit of hot glue on your new glue stick as you stick it in your hot glue gun, it will stay in there and not fall out. And I'm just making sure that these are all pretty straight up and down. Here I'm showing you the E6000 that I ended up using. It's the quick hold, and it dries relatively quickly. On this one, I went back and used it in the little creases that you see there. Like I said, on the next one that I did, and I didn't record that one because I didn't think you would want to see me gluing stuff together over and over, I actually put a row of it down and left a few little blank spots in between, and in those blank spots I put the hot glue, and it seemed to stick so much better. So do it that way if you end up making one of these. That's my suggestion, at least. And put as many of the wreath forms as you want. I used 4 on one of mine and 6 on the other. And here I'm showing you the terracotta spray paint, and I got that off of Amazon. That's the only place I could find it. I can link it for you guys if you can't find it on your own, but just search terracotta spray paint on Amazon and you should be able to find it. And I just gave it a good coat all over. And then I took this little pool noodle end cap thingy that I found at the Dollar Tree. I thought the shape was really cool, and this is how they turned out. Like I said, super easy, but they turned out so cute. And you can put faux plants in it, or you could actually put dirt and real plants. And be sure, if you make these, go over to Instagram and post a picture and tag me at Christi Creates DIY, because I would love to see it. And I'm going to start opening my Dollar Tree canvases. And here I'm going to use my Dritz staple remover. And if you don't have one of these, I think I said this in my last video, it is a must-have if you take very many of these canvases off of the frames from the Dollar Tree. It works amazing. And I noticed after I had gotten this canvas off that for some reason the frame was different. I'm going to show you a close-up here in a minute. The corners have this extra little piece holding it together, and I did not like that. I wanted just a solid wood frame. So here's the difference. The one that still has the packaging on it is the one you want. The one that I'm showing that's on the top, that is the one I didn't like. And if it doesn't matter to you, then it's not a big deal, but I just didn't like it. See how I'm pointing at that extra little piece in the corners? I did not want my frames to have that. So I got rid of those. Luckily I had a few more left in my stash, so I got the good ones out and unwrapped those instead. And if you don't have OCD like me, then it probably wouldn't matter. Or even if they were all three the same, it wouldn't have mattered, but I just knew it would bug me if I kept them. So there I'm taking a little bit of my antiquing wax and I mixed some water with it, and I'm just going to use that as my stain. I did sand down one or two of the canvases just a little because they were really rough. And then, like I said, I'm going to go back and stain them on the front and the sides. The back side didn't matter because it's going to be against the wall in the end. So get those all stained up. And then I'm going to set them to the side to let them dry a little. And these are little vases that I found at the Dollar Tree with the little flowers in them. I'm going to set the flowers off to the side to use for another DIY. And I'm just going to use the vases for this. I'm going to give them a coat of chalk paint as well. Take the stickers off the bottom because you will be able to see the bottom when you hang these up on the wall. So I'm trying to kind of get in all the little crevices. I will go back and sand these a little bit. So if you would rather just give it a light coat of paint and not have to go back and sand, that would work as well. I just wanted it to be a pretty thick coat of paint and then have some distressing in spots. So it's just kind of personal preference. Now that I've got 2 coats of paint on all of that, I'm going to go back and do a little bit of sanding on these small little vases and on the little candle holder. I wanted you just to be able to see some distressing but not actually be able to truly see through the glass. So that was kind of the look I was going for. Like I said, this is total personal preference. If you don't want it distressed at all, you don't have to distress it. This is just kind of what matched my decor, so that's kind of how I went with my distressing, just to kind of match everything else. And then I went back and I kind of dampened this paper towel just a little bit. I was actually trying to show you my cute little Dollar Tree creamer vase that I found the other day at Dollar Tree. And here I'm just wiping these down. Now I'm going to take my frames and I'm going to, I was kind of trying to figure out how far down I wanted the vases to hang. Again, this is a personal preference. I wanted them to hang about 2/3 of the way down, just so it was kind of proportionate. So I do take and hot glue some string, and I kind of wrap it around the top of that vase. It has a little bit of a lip on it. I wrap it around, I think it was about 3 times. Then I do tie a knot, and I put a little bit of hot glue back there and tie another knot just so it really locks that knot in so it can't come loose. And then I wrap it around the top, I think about 3 or 4 times. I was trying to decide here if I wanted to put some of that lamb's ear at the top, kind of like I did on the other sign, with maybe a little bit of ribbon or something like that. But I wasn't liking the way that looked. Again, personal preference. If that's something you like the look of, you can add that. But I do just wrap that around a few times on the top. I hot glue it on the back, hold it there for, probably about 15 seconds so it has a chance to really dry. Then I wrap it around just a couple more times and I tie it off around itself so it locks it on. You could also use a staple gun to help hold it. Just whatever you feel comfortable with. That vase does not weigh very much, so it wasn't going to take a lot to hold it on there. And here I'm just putting a little bit more glue, and then the edges I'm laying flat on the back and kind of gluing those down so that they can't go anywhere. And then I'm going to get out my lavender. It's what I decided to put in my vases. And I'm going to cut a couple of little sprigs off and put them down in there. At first I was just going to put one little sprig that I had pulled off, and it was like not looking right. It had a weird look to it. I wanted it to be more like sprayed out, kind of like that. So I did go ahead and get a second little sprig that I pulled off of there, and those just pop right off. You don't have to cut them or anything. And then I hot glued the two together, but I did it like to where they were offset just a little bit, just so one went a little farther down in the vase and one stuck up farther, if that makes sense. And if you ever have any questions about any of my videos, anything I did, if you want something, more descriptive, detailing on what I did or how I did it or what I used or anything like that, you can always leave me a comment down below and I will get back to you just as quick as I see it. And you guys are always welcome to even just say hi down below if you're new. Introduce yourself. If you're not new, welcome back. Say hey, what's up? I always get excited when I have comments down there. I like to make new friends. And here I'm just continuing to do what I did on the first one. I do the same thing on all 3 frames. Look how cute and simple those are, and you can do this. These are so easy to make. Not much to it. So you're gonna take your Dollar Tree sign. This was just an Easter sign that I had got. You could even take a spare piece of wood that you have out in your garage or a piece of cardboard. This paintbrush was one I got from the Dollar Tree. After painting with it for just a few seconds, I decided I did not like it at all. So I got out a foam brush and painted the rest of my Waverly chalk paint. I gave 2 coats. After I did that and I dried it with my heat tool, then I came back and dry brushed some black just to give it some distressing. I actually forgot to hit record, I guess, when I did that part. I thought I hit record, but maybe I didn't. And so it's gonna show me pretending to paint it. So then I took one of the windmills from the Dollar Tree and I cut it down so I have just a half of the windmill left, and I'll show you just kind of breaking it apart. But like I said, that was in the part that I was dry brushing and I forgot to record it. So there's me pretending to cut it apart. And I'm kind of getting my placement to see where I want to put this. I took that image right there that I just Google searched, Farm Sweet Farm, and printed it off with my printer. On the back side of the piece of paper, I took my pencil lead and just scribbled all over the whole back side. And now I flipped it over and put it where I want it to go on the sign, and I'm just tracing around it. And that will leave a small little line for me to color in. And right here, I'm trying to show you the outline, but I didn't realize that you couldn't see it on the camera, so I apologize. And I'm just going to take a paint marker. I got both of these, I believe, at Walmart. You could even use a Sharpie or a Crayola marker. You could take a fine point paintbrush and use some of your black Waverly chalk paint as well. But you're just going to fill in those lines that you just traced from the back of that piece of paper. Okay, now that I have that all filled in, I'm going to attach the windmill that I had cut earlier. And I'm just going to apply some hot glue to a few places on the back, and we are going to stick it down just wherever it looks good. And of course, I dropped a blob of hot glue on there. I can't do anything without messing it up a little bit. I'm such a klutz all the time. Hopefully there's others out there that are with me on this. I can't be the only one, right? Now I'm going to take some of my lavender. I believe I got this at Walmart in the floral section. I'm just cutting a few little sprigs off just to kind of fill in those empty spaces. I thought lavender looks farmhouse, so it'll kind of zhuzh it up a little. I'm going to glue those down. On each little set, I glued 3 of them. And then I'm going to take my jute twine and I'm going to just tie a tiny little bow and stick it down so it looks like the little sprigs of lavender are tied together with that jute twine. Once I get the jute twine tied into a bow, I glue it down. And once I get that done, you know, I kind of look it over and make sure it's kind of what I like. That's kind of the idea that I had in my head. And then I'm going to take the original jute cord that was at the top through the little holes, and I kept that, and I'm just going to put it back up there on the top to hang it with, because it actually goes with the farmhouse look really well. So I'm just going to reuse that. Like I said, it's going to look cute anyways. So, and it had the little hard edges that you can push back through the holes, so it's really easy to get back through the holes as long as you don't cut it in the beginning. There I am scraping that extra glue that I stuck down by accident. And here I'm going to stick that back through and then show you the finished product. Let me know what you think. Do you think this was cute? Okay, now we're gonna start our wood bead garland. And first you're gonna take some Scotch tape and wrap it around the end so that you will have kind of a little needle per se to poke through the beads, because if you just try to push the jute twine through there, it's going to be really difficult to do and it's going to take a long time. These beads here I ordered off Amazon because you can order quite a few for not a lot of money. You can also get wood beads at the Dollar Tree, but they are colored, and I wanted to cut out that step of having to paint them to look like wood. You can also get some at Hobby Lobby, and if you get them on a day that they're 50% off or use a 40% coupon, I think a small little bag is like $1.25 or $1.50. It's not a lot, but you would need a few bags of them, depending on how long you wanted your garland. I wanted it a little bit longer, so I just added more beads than you would really have to. Then we're going to make tassels for each end. When I went back and watched, I realized my video of the tassel making wasn't very clear, so I went back and shot this just so you could see a little bit better. You're going to wrap the twine around your fingers about 20 times, depending on how thick you want your tassel to be. And then once you get it wrapped around, you're going to poke the end of your twine that you just loaded the beads onto through the loop, like I did with that twine there. And you're going to tie it in a double knot. Once you get that double knot tied, you're going to cut loose the twine from your roll of twine there. You can see here where I cut it. And then you're going to hold it in your hand and hold all the loops together, and you're going to wrap a little small piece of twine around there, probably about 4 or 5, 6 times, depending on kind of the look you want. You could even wrap it just once if you just wanted a single row of twine around through there, but I wanted like a little bit more substantial look. And then once you get that wrapped around, you're going to tie that in a double knot. The twine kept getting in my way there. And I usually put just a tiny little spot of hot glue on my double knot just to make sure it's super locked into place. You don't have to do that, but I just kind of do it as an extra precaution so it doesn't come untied. Now I'm going to go back with my scissors and cut through all of those loops. And I miss a couple here, so I have to go back and get those. And then you're going to hold all of that together in your hand, because when you cut it, you will have some long pieces and some short pieces. Go back and trim it to where they're all the same length so that it has a nice finished look to it. And then once you get this tassel done, you've got one end of your garland done, and you're going to go back and repeat that for the other end of your garland. And that's it. I hope that tassel video was good enough for you to understand exactly how to do it. If it wasn't, leave me a comment down below and let me know, and I can do another video that is nothing but how to make a tassel and how to make pom-poms. If you're into that, leave me a comment down below and I will do a video just for you. guys, if you enjoyed today's video, make sure you go and check out my channel because there are lots of other farmhouse projects on there as well. And if you make any of these, go over to Instagram and post a picture and tag me at Christi Creates DIY, or share them with me on my Facebook page and I can share them on my Instagram for you.